Not the kind that warns you of danger. No, that's instinct. That's survival. This fear is different. This fear whispers in the voice of reason. It dresses itself in logic and realism and caution. It masquerades as protection, but it's a prison. And it is lime. And unless you kill it, deliberately, methodically, violently, it will kill every dream you ever dared to believe in. That's the truth no one wants to hear. But you're not here for comfort. You're here for truth. So here it is. You were born with two mental giants inside you. One is called fear. The other is called faith. And whichever one you feed, lives. The other starves, fear or faith. They cannot coexist. One must die. And that choice is yours. Look back through the pages of history. You will not find a single man or woman who changed the world while bowing to fear. Edison didn't invent the light bulb because he was afraid of the dark. He did it because he had faith in the light. Faith in his mind. Faith in an idea no one else could see. Abraham Lincoln was not driven by fear of losing. He lost more elections than most of us have ever voted in. He was driven by faith that the union of man was more powerful than the hatred that tried to tear it apart. Henry Ford didn't build a revolution in transportation because he feared being ordinary. He believed that the common man deserved uncommon mobility. He had faith in a future no one believed was possible. And Walt Disney, he was bankrupt, laughed at, rejected. But fear couldn't kill what was already burning in his soul. Faith in imagination, faith in magic, faith in his vision. These names are not remembered because they never felt fear. They are remembered because they killed it. Every single day. With belief, with discipline, with decision, with faith. Faith is not some abstract spiritual idea. It is a force, a mental state, a frequency of thought that tunes your life to creation, not destruction. It is the belief in things unseen, the conviction in things not yet realized. It is knowing, not guessing, deciding, not hoping. But here's the brutal truth. You cannot build faith without destroying fear. And most people never destroy it. They tolerate it. They manage it. They hide behind it. They even justify it. But you cannot serve two masters. You cannot plant seeds of greatness while bowing to the weeds of doubt. Fear will always offer you something: safety, comfort, predictability. But it will cost you everything. Your potential. Your legacy. Your soul. You cannot play both sides. You must choose, because faith, real faith, isn't something you find when life is easy. It's forged and fired. It is born when you walk into the unknown without a map, without approval, without a guarantee, and decide to build anyway. Let me tell you something you already know. Deep in your bones, every time you hesitate, every time you shrink back, every time you say maybe later, you are handing over power to fear. And that debt is compounding. You feel it, don't you? That weight pressing against your chest when you wake up. That quiet regret behind your scrolling. That voice that says, you were made for more. But the day ends, and you've done nothing about it. That is fear, feeding on your time, feeding on your potential. Feeding on your life. But here's the good news. Fear is a parasite. It needs your permission to survive. And the moment you stop feeding it, the moment you stop believing it, it dies, just like that. Now, how do you kill it? You start with decision. Not a wish, not a preference. A decision, absolute and final, like Cortez burning the ships, like Carnegie quitting his job and betting on steel, like you right now. Deciding that fear no longer has a seat at your table. That's step one, and it's the hardest part. Because fear dies the moment you become more committed to your future than your familiar. But once that decision is made, you don't need to find faith. You build it. Brick by brick, action by action. Every time you move forward, despite the doubt, that's faith. Every time you speak, even when your voice shakes, that's faith. Every time you show up without proof, without applause, without a safety net, that is faith in motion. And that's the only faith that matters. See, you've been taught to think fear is something to manage. I'm telling you, it's something to eliminate. You don't negotiate with it. You don't soothe it. You don't invite it into your vision board and hope it behaves. You kill it. You drown it in belief. You suffocate it with focus. You starve it with action. And in its place, you build faith like a fortress, because once faith is established, real, unshakable, decision-backed faith, you become unstoppable. Not because fear disappears, but because it no longer drives. It rides in the back seat now, watching you create a life it never believed was possible. And that is where everything begins. Not with motivation, not with a plan, not with some secret system, but with a decision that from this day forward, you will no longer serve fear. You will build something stronger. You will construct belief like a cathedral, and you will rise, not because life got easier, but because **** got stronger. Faith is not a luxury. It is a requirement. It is the power source of every great life ever lived. And it is built by those who refuse to bow to fear any longer. Faith does not ask for evidence. Faith does not wait for applause. Faith does not require permission. It moves first and makes the world respond. That's what separates the legends from the forgotten. Not talent, not luck, not even intelligence, but the boldness to believe before proof exists. And that boldness, that fierce internal certainty, is something you train. It is a muscle. And like all muscles, it grows in resistance. That's why life will not hand you peace and power in the same breath. You will have to walk through hell while holding heaven in your mind. You will have to build the bridge while you're crossing it. You will have to believe in the mountain summit while still buried in the valley. This is where most people quit. Not because they're weak, but because they never learn to believe past the pain. They mistake the discomfort of growth for the failure of their dream. They start to think the fear means stop when it really means you're close. Understand this. Fear is loudest when your breakthrough is near, because fear senses its own death when you begin to move, when you act anyway, when you stop seeking guarantees and start building certainty from within. That's when fear starts begging, through anxiety, through excuses, through distractions, through other people's opinions. But faith walks through the fire and keeps its eyes on the vision. Faith is stubborn. Faith is unreasonable. So, kill it. Kill it with a decision to act when you feel frozen. Kill it by doing what you said you would do, especially when you no longer feel like it. Kill it by getting up one more time than you fall. Kill it with discipline, with vision, with movement. Because every time you move through fear, even just 1 inch, your faith expands. And faith is a powerful thing. It multiplies. It compounds. It sharpens your mind, expands your awareness, opens doors you didn't even know existed. Faith takes the fog and turns it into focus. And the more you feed it, the less room fear has to breathe. Let's go deeper. What really is faith? Faith is clarity in the face of chaos. It is seeing the world as malleable, not fixed. It is understanding that life is not happening to you. It's responding to you. Every thought, every belief. Every action. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. He wasn't writing poetry. He was writing a blueprint. And that blueprint is still etched into the laws of this universe. Faith is the blueprint. Action is the hammer. And your life, your results, your legacy is the house you build. So ask yourself, what have you been building? A fortress of strength, or a prison of fear? Have you spent your years reinforcing limitations? Or have you been daring enough to reinforce possibility? Faith doesn't care where you came from. It only asks where you are willing to go. It doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. It doesn't need your past. It needs your decision. Right now, today. Here's the secret no one teaches you. You don't need the whole staircase. You just need the next step. And the belief that the next one will appear. That's what faith does. It turns motion into momentum. And momentum makes fear irrelevant. Because once you're moving, the story changes. You're no longer asking, what if it doesn't work? You're asking, what else can I conquer? And now, you're dangerous, not to others, but to the fear that used to rule you, to the laziness that used to lull you to sleep. To the doubt that used to define your decisions. Now, you are a builder. Of faith, of fire, of a future that no longer waits for permission. Let me tell you why this matters. Because there's a life with your name on it. a masterpiece waiting on the other side of your hesitation. There are people you haven't met yet who are counting on your courage. There are dreams waiting to be unlocked by your faith. There are moments of legacy, wealth, impact that will never exist until you step forward. And you can't wait anymore. You can't wait for clarity. You can't wait for perfection. You can't wait for fear to disappear. That day never comes. You build the clarity. You earn the courage. You destroy the fear with forward motion and a mind that refuses to settle. This is not motivation. This is a command from the version of you that's already done it. The version of you that's tired of shrinking, tired of waiting, tired of making fear the ruler of a kingdom that belongs to faith. Because fear doesn't just cost you opportunities, it costs you identity. It steals the man or woman you were meant to become, and you were not born to be ruled by something you created in your mind. Fear is learned, faith is built. And now, it's time to build. There comes a moment, and you may feel it right now, where the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. That is the ignition point. The split second where your soul says, enough. Enough playing small, enough hiding behind comfort, enough feeding the fear that's been lying to you since the beginning. Because here's the brutal truth. Fear is not just a liar. It's a thief. It will steal your years, your strength, your vision, and it will disguise itself as playing it safe. But you were not designed for safety. You were built for purpose. And purpose doesn't live in the shallow end of life. It waits in the deep, where most people never swim, because they're too afraid of drowning. But what they don't realize is that staying in the shallow end is its own kind of slow death. The deep, that's where the gold is. That's where greatness lives. That's where faith becomes your oxygen. You see, fear is loud when faith is absent. But when faith walks in, fear shuts up. Not because it disappears, but because it knows it's no longer for he marched. Do you think Steve Jobs had a guarantee the iPhone would work? Do you think Nelson Mandela asked permission to believe in freedom? No. They made a choice, and they moved through fear. Beyond fear, against fear, and they let faith lead. You must understand, fear lives in the mind. Faith lives in the spirit. And your job every day is to make sure your mind submits to your spirit. Because your spirit knows something your fear never will, that you are limitless. Fear looks at your current situation and builds walls. Faith looks at your potential and builds wings. You can stare at the cage, or you can realize the door has been open this whole time. But no one will walk through it for you. No one will give you permission to rise. No one is coming to hand you belief. You must choose it. And then become it. Let's talk about how faith is built. It's built in silence. In early mornings where you rise before the world tells you who to be. In late nights where you sit with your thoughts and replace the noise with truth. It's built in repetition, doing what you said you would do, until your actions echo louder than your doubts. It's built through failure, falling forward, again and again, until fear becomes irrelevant. And it's built through gratitude. Yes, gratitude, because fear cannot exist where appreciation lives. You cannot fear what you're thankful for. You cannot fear your calling when you're in awe of your breath. You cannot fear lack when your heart is already full. Gratitude is not weakness. It's warfare. It's how you shift your energy from scarcity to abundance instantly. It's how you take control of the only thing that ever mattered, your state. Because fear is a state, faith is a state, and your state decides your story. Change the state, and you change your life. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. You are not your fears. You are the force behind the thought. You are the author of the next page. You are the builder of belief, the sculptor of self, the commander of your future. And the future does not belong to the hesitant. It belongs to the decisive. The disciplined, the faithful. You have to feel the fear and move anyway. Not because you're reckless, but because you finally understand who you are. And you are not a product of fear. You are a force of faith. Every hero you've ever admired was terrified, but they moved anyway. Because they had something fear couldn't touch. Purpose. And when your purpose is real, when it's burning in your chest, fear becomes fuel. It drives you harder. It sharpens your edge. It reminds you that you're alive, and that what you're building actually matters. So use it. Let it remind you that you're on the edge of transformation. Let it push you closer to who you were born to be. And when that fear rises, because it always will stand firm. Lock eyes with it. And say, not today. Not anymore. Because there's no space for fear in the life you're building. There's no room for hesitation in the legacy you're carving. There's no patience for excuses when you finally see the power within you. This is where faith becomes more than belief. It becomes identity. It's not something you visit. It's something you live in. It's who you are. The kind of person who keeps promises. The kind who leads when others follow. The kind who dares to step into the unknown and create the path. That's faith. Not just belief in a better world, but belief that you were born to build it. There comes a point when faith becomes non-negotiable, when it's no longer something you visit for inspiration, but something you wear like armor. Every morning. Every battle. Every step forward. You wake up and you decide, not to hope, not to wish, but to own. To own your mind. Own your emotions. Own your reactions, your direction, your outcomes. Because once faith becomes who you are, not just what you have, you stop reacting to life, and you start creating it. This is the great shift. This is the moment your story changes. When the inner voice of fear is no longer loud enough to drown out the roar of your spirit. When the mirror no longer reflects a prisoner, but a builder, a warrior, a creator. And the only question left is, what will you build? Will you build a life out of reaction or creation? Out of fear or faith? You already know the answer because you feel it deep in your bones. That hunger, that pull, that fire you've tried to dim because it made others uncomfortable. That fire is truth. That fire is your reminder. That fire is the voice of who you really are, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the years of settling and shrinking and overthinking. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to be average. You were born to dominate your reality, through thought, through belief, through relentless, unreasonable, undeniable faith. And here's something they'll never teach you in school. The most dangerous person on earth is the one who has nothing left to fear. Because once fear dies, all that's left is clarity. No hesitation. No noise. No confusion. Just movement, deliberate, decisive, relentless. You know what needs to be done. You know what version of you've been avoiding. You know where the door is. Faith gives you the courage to walk through it, but not as a guest. As the owner. And once you've stepped into faith, the world begins to shift. Not because it changes, but because you do. People treat you differently. Opportunities respond differently. Time feels different. And that's not luck. It's alignment. Because faith is not just mental. It's vibrational. It pulls the future into the present. It bends time and resistance around your decisions. It magnetizes success. Because success isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by who you become. And fear can't survive at that altitude. It gasps for breath as you rise. It loses its grip as you take full ownership. It withers in the heat of your clarity. So now we arrive at the final question. Not what if I fail, not what will they think, not am I ready, but this. How long will you wait to become who you were born to be? How many years will you hand to hesitation? How many dreams will you forfeit to comfort? How many moments will you give to the illusion of safety? When greatness is waiting just beyond the discomfort, because there is a version of you already alive inside, who doesn't run from pressure. They create under pressure. Who doesn't fear challenge? They rise in challenge. Who doesn't avoid the unknown? They become the storm that others fear. And that version of you is not a fantasy. It's your natural state. The only thing in the way is fear. And the only thing stronger than fear is the decision to replace it, not with empty hope, but with unshakable faith. Faith that says, I don't know how it's going to work, but I know it will. I don't have all the answers, but I'm still moving. I don't need guarantees. I just need to show up. Because once you show up for yourself, the universe has no choice but to respond. This is your moment, right here, right now. Not tomorrow, not when it's easier, not when the fear fades or the timing feels perfect. Now. This is where you end the old story and write a new one. Not with ink, but with fire. You kill fear with action. You bury it beneath your boldness. You replace it with belief that has roots deeper than doubt. You build a new mind, a new identity, a new legacy. And when people ask what changed, you'll tell them, I stopped bowing to fear, and I started building with faith. Faith is the beginning of all greatness, not because it guarantees the outcome, but because it guarantees your evolution. And the moment you evolve beyond your fear, you become unstoppable. So rise. Not later. Now.